Welcome to a world with limitless possibilities. A world where pain and suffering are matched only by the sounds of those who endure it. Welcome to your nightmare.
Welcome to your nightmare.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Nightmare. For tonight I'm going to be narrating a story called Hitchhiker, credited to Sapphire Lion 15 on Reddit No Sleep. About 20ish years ago, I used to travel a lot for work. I'll spare you the details regarding my job. The 5 years I spent there are mostly a blur of meetings, car trips, and too many fast food meals. But there is one story I remember. I had just finished a business meeting in a city roughly 3 hours from my home. My boss had offered to give me a hotel room, but because it was a Friday night and only 7:30, I decided just to drive home. Because it would save money, he agreed. I was on my second ginger ale and third Green Day song when I saw something. I should say someone standing next to the road. I could make out the details as I got closer. Whoever they were dressed in a really messy manner. Mud-stained jeans, wrinkle-faded shirt, shaggy dark hair, and oddly enough, a green scarf. There was a beat-up suitcase at his feet, and his thumb was out in the traditional hitchhiking bend. My first instinct was to keep driving, but for some reason I pulled over. I still don't know why. He didn't hesitate. He opened the passenger door. Kids had broken the door lock and hopped in. "Thank you so much, stranger." He had a friendly southern accent. If I had to describe it, it was like a sing-song Georgian accent. Despite the state his clothes were in, his face and hair were surprisingly clean. He didn't show any of the physical signs of drugs or drinking, and there was no bulge that would indicate a gun under his shirt. I was far from comfortable with this, but decided to give him a ride. "Where are you heading?" "Trying to get north, friend. If you could just take me to the nearest bus station, I'd be much obliged. Man, I'm glad I ran into a nice guy like you and not some serial killer or something. See, I'm not really used to doing this type of thing. I usually take buses, but I got stuck and missed my bus home. How dumb is that, friend?" I'd started driving again. We ended up talking for 30 minutes straight. I offered him a soda from my six-pack I'd brought with me, and he guzzled it in a minute. By then, all my worries about him being a psycho killer were practically gone. Maybe that's why I had such a serious lapse in judgment and picked up the second hitchhiker. This time, he was on the side of the road, jumping in the air and waving his arms. Closer inspection showed that his eyes were wide as humanly possible, and he was screaming something. I rolled the window down a crack. "Help, please. Help." I didn't think twice, I just stopped. He jumped right in. I was about to ask my first passenger to move when I had noticed that he had somehow already gotten into the back seat. I did a double take. How on earth had he managed that without me seeing him? He just put a finger over his lips. Quiet. I got a more detailed look at my second passenger. I knew almost instantly that I had made a mistake. His eyes weren't white from fear. The redness in them made that clear. On top of that, he reeked of alcohol, and there was a look in his eyes. I started driving and just tried to focus on the road ahead. My second passenger had boarded at the last town for nearly 100 miles. We were now on that stretch of highway that goes on for miles without so much as a billboard. To make matters worse, we were in the middle of the desert. Trouble started about 15 minutes into the drive. I heard the click of something metallic. I knew what it was before he held it to my forehead. "Pull over." What else could I do? I put on my four ways and got over. "You never asked me for my name. Not even where I was going. That was pretty rude, dude." Where are you going?
Little late to ask now, isn't it?
His words were somewhat slurred, and his eyes were still wide. Was he high? I stole a look at the pistol in my rearview mirror. I noticed two things. The pistol wasn't loaded, so he was either high or the worst killer ever. And my first passenger was starting to look different. Was he bigger?
I asked you a question, dude.
He dug the gun's barrel a little further into my temple.
Any last words?
Yeah, your gun's not loaded.
Those are your last... Wait, what? You're lying.
He took the gun away from my head, though it was still pointed in my direction. I took this opportunity to check on my poor first passenger. He'd been silent the whole time. He must have been absolutely terrified. I froze. He was shaking violently, but not in terror. He was staring at the gun-wielding would-be carjacker. He started opening and closing his mouth, like a fish desperate for water. He started to grow and grow. He already took up the back seat. He looked like an inflated ball. He finally stopped growing. His arm, now as thick and strong as a 2x4, shot out and grabbed the gun out of the criminal's hands. His head shot up, eyes still wide. The creature's other arm snatched the front of his shirt, lifting him effortlessly into the air. He screamed.
Yeah!
The creature, still with that friendly southern drawl, lifted the gun and spoke.
Don't you know how dangerous guns are, friend? Perhaps I ought to show you.
He pinned him against the dashboard and held him there with his knee. He used two enormous fingers to pry the man's mouth open, revealing a row of missing and decayed teeth. The creature took the gun, noticed that it was empty, and searched the owner's pockets. He found two spares and loaded the pistol. He shoved the gun into his victim's mouth, causing him to gag. I knew what was going to happen. My stomach dropped and my courage failed. I looked away, trying to cover my ears. I still heard the gunshot all too clearly. It took me hours to get the bloodstains out of my car the next day. I stared in horror at the creature as it deflated. In 15 or 30 seconds, he was normal again. Normal, of course, being a relative term.
Thanks again for the ride, friend. And I can't apologize enough for the mess. I'll just take my things and go.
He grabbed a suitcase out of the back seat, hoisted the other passenger's bloodied corpse over his shoulder, and started off into the desert. I stared after him for what must have been half an hour. Then I came to my senses and shot out of there like a NASCAR driver. I stopped at the nearest police station I could find and told them a tastefully edited version of my story. I told them that, against my better judgment, I picked up a hitchhiker. He'd pulled a gun on me, and I'd pulled over. I told him that he shot himself, explaining the bloodstains on the dash, and run off into the desert. They found his body out there 3 days later, after the desert animals had given him a makeover. They thought it confirmed my story, and I was free to go. I worked that job for 4 more years. A few things changed after that night. I couldn't stomach ginger ale anymore and switched to root beer. I no longer found Green Day as entertaining and gave U2 a try. And for obvious reasons, I don't pick up hitchhikers anymore. That is all for this episode of Nightmare. I hope you have enjoyed this show and look forward to our next. Until next time.
Sleep well.